Alright, today we learned about two-way frequency tables. So first we're going to learn how to construct a two-way table, and then we'll also learn how to interpret our relative frequencies. A relative frequency is a ratio of a value of a subtotal to the value of a total. So when we talk about ratio, we talk about it as being a fraction. So we have a subtotal, that will be the number on the top, to the total, the number on the bottom. And then we'll compare those. A two-way table shows data from one sample group as it relates to two different categories. A two-way table can show relative frequencies for rows or for columns, and we'll do both. We'll find it for the rows and we'll find it for the columns. And then by analyzing the frequencies in a two-way table, you can determine possible associations between two variables. That should be an S at the end there. Variables. Okay, when we talk about associations, if we take that ratio and we find that it's not greater than 50%, then we say there isn't a strong association between the two variables. Okay, on example 1, it says Philip surveyed students at his school. He found that 78 students owned a cell phone and 57 of those owned an iPod. There are 13 students who do not own a cell phone but own an iPod. 9 students do not own either device. Construct a two-way table summarizing the data. The first thing you have to understand is if we go across, these two numbers have to add to equal a total. Same way here for this row, if we add those two, they have to equal the total. Well, we can do the same thing. If we go down, we add these two and they should be that total. Or if we go down, again, you add and you get a total. Here, same thing on that last column. If you add those two, you get that total. Okay, so we're going to start out with what we can understand. The hardest part is figuring out what numbers go inside which box. So he said he found that 78 students own a cell phone. So we're going to go cell phone. We have a total. It says 78 of those students owned a cell phone. And 57 of those own an iPod. So here we put 57, and then we could subtract that 57 from the 78. We get this other box where it says no iPod, and so 78 minus 57 will give us 21. Then it says there are 13 students who do not own a cell phone, but own an iPod. So own the iPod, not the cell phone, so a 13 goes here. And then it says 9 students do not own either device. No iPod, no cell phone. So we put the 9 here. Now, we can add straight down to get our total. So when we add those, we get a 70. Again, you're going to add here to get a total. So 21 plus 9 gives us 30. And then we're going to add this way to get a total. 13 plus 9 is 22. We add straight down or we add over, we should get the same number of 100. And we have just filled in our frequency table. So we have done what it asks us to do here to construct a two-way table summarizing the data. Okay, so I just inserted those numbers because it says using the previous table, interpret the relative frequencies of students by row. So we're talking about going across here, not down. I like to think of a column as standing up. So we're going to take our 57 here, and I'll write it right below, and divide it by the total in that row. The total in that row is 78. When we divide that, we get a percentage or a decimal. That is roughly 73. It's not exactly, I'm going to round to the nearest hundredth. Then to do the no iPod but have a cell phone, we take the 21 divided by 78 and we get 27. Now you should notice something about these two numbers. If you add them together you get 1. If you use them as a percentage you would get 100%. So then we do that as well with our no cell phones. We take the 13 divided by 22. 13 divided by 22 is roughly 0.59. And then the 9 divided by 22, you could find this another way, is 0.41. Now if you add those again, notice that when we add these percentages we would get to 100% or just 1. Alright, once you have excuse me, once you have found those relative frequencies by row, then we are going to interpret it. Now, if you remember earlier, I said that if it's less than 50%, there's not a strong association. So I'm looking for one that's greater than 50%, and I see this one right here. So I'm going to talk about that right now and say that out of the 78 students that had a cell phone, 73% of them also had an iPod. So we're going to say just that. Okay, so of the 78 students that had a cell phone, 57 also had an iPod, or you could say 73% had both or have both. Okay, so using the exact same table, we're probably going to find some similar information when we are asked to interpret it, but this time we're going to do it by column, so we're talking about going down. So if we talk about that top box where it's the cell phone and the iPod, we're going to now take 57 divided by the total number of students that would have an iPod, which is 70. And this gives us 0.81, or about 81%. 13 divided by 70 for our next one will give us 0.19. And again, we could find that without dividing it because those two have to add to be 100%. We'll also do it for the no iPod cell phone. We take 21 divided by this total down here, and that gives us 70%, or 0.70. And then we obviously know that that's going to be 30. You could find it by taking 9 divided by 30. And then we're going to talk about these correlations. Right here, this is a very strong correlation because it's almost, it's 81%. So we're going to say here that when we interpret it, we would say that because we are talking about a total of iPods, we would say that there is a strong association between the number of people who own a cell phone or an iPod and also own a cell phone. So I just wrote that out. There's a strong association between those students who own an iPod and a cell phone. Another way that you could write this is you could say that 81% of students who have an iPod also have a cell phone. And I think that's it. Yep, 6-6. There's your homework, your two-way frequency tables assignment. Good luck.